Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. My name is Caleb Alexander McKenzie. I'm going to be one of your regular hosts on this thing. So what we're going to do with this first issue is introduce you to everybody that's at the table that's going to be talking about what we do and what we are. And then we're going to run this kind of like a zero issue, a getting to know us episode. So like I said, my name's Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
I'm Craig Lance.
And I'm Sean Litton.
Yeah, and so we're the three guys who are going to be running this Southern Fried Geekery podcast for the most part. We're going to have some people come in and out, doing different things. But other than that, it's just going to be us. You're kind of stuck with us. So, as I mentioned, what we kind of want to do is run this like a getting to know us episode, a zero issue, if you will, if you're into comics. If you're not into comics, I don't know why you're listening to this podcast. But we appreciate you doing it anyway. Hopefully we keep you entertained. My love of nerddom, comics, anything. It all started when I was a kid. I had braces. I grew up in the middle of nowhere in Arkansas, which if you've ever driven through Arkansas, there's not much. You blink and you miss nothing. But I had braces when I was a kid, so we would come to the banging metropolis of Little Rock once a month to get my braces fixed up. I'd spend my allowance money on some comics, and then I'd go back home. So yeah, that's what got me going. What about you, Craig?
Well, mine started, speaking specifically to comics, mine started as probably a 10, 11-year-old kid buying Richie Rich comics and sharing them with my friends at school, and they would buy Richie Rich comics. I don't know what Richie Rich, how we got started in that, but that's what all of us wanted to read.
The young capitalist in Craig.
Right. And the conservatism back then. So we would trade comics. We'd read, trade. I mean, I'm sure I never ended up keeping any of mine. They just got passed around from person to person.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Then went from there into Mad Magazine because apparently my parents thought that Mad Magazine was a good kids comic for people to read. I don't know if they ever saw the inside of one or not. But anyways, so as I grew up and got a little bit older, I switched to the more traditional superhero style comic books and what people think of when they read comics. There was a lot of Archie in there at some point too, but that's where I got my start in comic books. And as far as nerddom goes, well, I think I was born that way.
So. Yeah, Craig has a second layer of skin that's just covered in Star Wars tattoos.
Yeah, I might be a Star Wars fan.
A little tiny Star Wars. All right. This is Sean Litton again. My origins in nerdery basically started when being a child of the 80s. I mean, you hear about anything from G.I. Joe to Transformers and Voltron. That was what I watched as a kid. And of course, as I got older, started getting explored into comic books and then movies and stuff. Currently I'm into anything from comic books to anime, manga, horror movies, pro wrestling. You name it, I pretty much watch it. It's in the nerddom. That's just what it's always appealed to me. So it's kind of been a big part of my life and shaped my life and has led me into knowing some great people like these two gentlemen that are part of this podcast.
Well, thanks, buddy. I want to go ahead and preemptively apologize to anybody listening if you hear me hacking up alone back here. We opted to start doing this podcast right in the middle of me trying to get over a head cold. So if that's what you hear, don't worry. I might make it. We're not really sure.
He is not one for
and I just spread it to Craig, apparently. So.
Yes, this eventually does be a circle of contamination we're going to have right here.
Well, once you say it, we're all going to start doing it.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like yawning.
Yeah.
If somebody says it, we'll all be yawning. If you cough it, we'll all be coughing.
Thanks, Caleb.
Just collective coughing. That's actually what this podcast is. We're going to change the name to Collective Coughing.
First episode. Change the title already.
Yep. Just change direction and everything. So as far as like comic book genres, I'm about as basic comic book kid as you can get. I love superheroes in tights, laser beams and epically strong heroes. My favorite character has always been the Hulk. Love that guy. But I'm also a big fan of like pulp characters. Back in the day with Tarzan and Conan, all of those kind of turn of the century characters have always been my bread and butter. I love those guys. What about you?
For me, it's probably a large focus on superheroes, but I really do love my horror comics. I love my fantasy and my science fiction. But I do tend to kind of focus on the superhero comics, but I read a lot of comics. If it's good and it's a good story, I'm going to read it, no matter what the genre is probably how I would classify myself.
Right on.
Me personally was as a kid of the 90s. I remember that great era for comic books, but that is when I started reading.
Shoulder pads.
Oh, so many shoulder pads, so many guns, and the pouches. And Deadpool, not funny.
Shoulder pads in pouches with
But
guns.
but the 90s, there are some great comics from that time. It
Oh,
kind
there's-
of nowadays it gets looked at, oh, the 90s. There's great comics from that era. It's just that it was mass produced. So,
I still love some of those books.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
And when I started reading, it was based on what my dad had already had a little bit of a collection going, so I was a Marvel fan.
Right.
So anything X-Men I ate up. And anything with Gambit, Beast, Nightcrawler, they're some of my favorites. Never was a Wolverine guy, but I acknowledge what he does. That he is a super popular, nothing wrong with that.
that's kind of crazy. For as long as I've known you, I don't know that I would have known that Gambit would have been the first X-Men to come out of your mouth.
Surprisingly, yes. I don't know. The idea of
My favorite X-Man too. I don't know if you knew that about me.
we have not known that for the years we've known each other. We're just now figuring this out, along with you people listening.
What do you mean, you people?
You know exactly.
I guess if we're gonna do that, my favorite X-Men. I'm the odd one of the bunch. I'm a big Multiple Man fan. Love Jamie. Yep. Big Peter David fan. So outside of the comic books, I'm a voracious reader. I love literature. I'm an English major. I'm trying to put myself back through school to be something with my life. I guess I don't know, probably not. But I love reading. Big fan of film. Big fan of television. I love sequential television, honestly, more than I love movies. I like watching television shows, and now thanks to Netflix and everything else, as you guys all know, you can just binge watch, and you get a 13-hour movie as opposed to just a 2-hour cinematic feature.
Absolutely.
Man, some people say that binge watching, they don't feel like you enjoy the series as much, but with so much out there, I think it's the way to go. You take it as a whole and discuss.
Oh, I do too, and I'm horrible about multitasking while I'm trying to do something. That drives my husband crazy. But what are you going to do? I don't have time to just do one thing at a time. But that's the way I like to consume my media. Other than that, I'm not a big toy collector or anything like that. I love collecting original art. But one of my favorite things in the world is to go to cons, meet artists, pick up either a page out of a comic that they've done, or pick up an original piece from them, a commission. I've got a small but nice collection going. What about you guys?
I'm a huge Star Wars fan. We'll just, again, get that out in the open, almost to the point of being an apologist for Star Wars. I'm not going to defend it to people that don't like it, but if you want to talk about it, I will explain to you why you're wrong. So there's that. I am a toy collector. I've got a pretty substantial, what I feel, not huge like somebody like Steve Sansweet, but I do have a pretty large-ish toy collection. Original art, I've got some of that. I have moved from going from commission pieces now to wanting to buy more of pages from comic books, because I think that's something that's getting more rare as time goes on. As we move into the digital age of comic books, it's not going to be out there forever. The artists are just moving in a different direction now. I'm not as big into manga and anime as Sean is, which you will find out.
Oh, yes.
But I do love me some One Piece. Even have some One Piece tattoos as well as my Star Wars tattoos. Started with Dungeons and Dragons probably about the time I could read.
Right.
Been playing Dungeons and Dragons my whole life. Now, of course, Pathfinder, but same thing. I'm sure there's more that'll come up as we go along, but that's what I can think of off the top of my head.
Man, the artwork in those old D&D books are still amazing.
So some of it,
I love it.
It hits that fine spectrum from amazing to terrible. And it's
Yeah,
great.
well,
It's
dude,
great
I'm
either way. Don't get me wrong.
Like I said, I'm a big fan of pulp stuff anyway. So
Absolutely.
You give me that old, purposefully done, poor publication
well,
style. I'm
since you
sucking
went
for it.
there, I just happened to buy 4 first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons books, Player's Manual, Dungeon Master's Guide, and the first 2 Monster Manuals. And we were looking at them last night. We had a Pathfinder game here, and we were looking at those. Some of the art, absolutely amazing. Like, I would want to own that original piece of art.
Right.
Paladin in Hell. I have always loved that piece. I still love that piece. I want it hanging on my wall. Some of the art for the Monster Manual.
Ooh.
Oh, it's bad. But it's so bad
scary.
it's good, almost.
Right.
But
Some just bad.
some of it's just bad. There's no doubt
Nah,
about
you
it.
can't win all the time.
Right.
So, yeah, Sean, why don't you give us some of your...
Okay, well, I would have to say I have a vast interest in multiple things. So I'm gonna give us some nice little quick bullet points, some of which I mentioned earlier. I collect toys, specifically Transformers Generation 1, more specifically Soundwave and all of his cassettes and variations. Anime. I'm huge in anime. I got started when I was 13, which is circa 1993. So yeah.
God, you're old.
I'm old. So I remember when stuff was good, because that's all old people do.
I just chase people off my lawn. Now that I'm 30, I just like sit in my window with a slingshot
Isn't
and
it
shoot
great?
rocks at the neighborhood kids.
Anime, horror movies. I collect a lot of the Friday the 13th stuff. Anything Jason Voorhees, I eat up. But I love all horror movies, from Nightmare on Elm Street to lesser known ones like In the Mouth of Madness. It's still the movie. Go see that movie if you have not seen In the Mouth of Madness.
I want to plug something here real quick. So every October, Sean does this really cool thing on social media where I'll let him tell you about it. He better explains than I can.
Yeah, it started with when I got Netflix and discovered that there is a ton of horror movies I've not seen. So every October, from the 1st to the 31st, I watch one new horror movie, new to me horror movie, should I say, like one I've never seen. And I post it on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and encourage people. I post it before I watch it so people can watch a lot of it. Like, you'll get 90% terrible, terrible movies, but when you find little gems, it makes it completely worthwhile. Something I highly recommend doing in the month of October.
What's your favorite one that you found so far? You can pull one off.
Top of the head, one of the best ones was He Never Died, starring Henry Rollins of the Henry Rollins Band and Black Flag, I believe.
Yeah, that was it.
Fantastic movie, but with a twist I won't give away about his origin, but it's about an immortal who's also a shut-in and hates people. It's pretty interesting. That one was a really good surprise.
So you say you're old? I'm old enough to remember when Henry Rollins was actually in Black Flag.
Right.
I remember my first Black Flag album. God, I love that man. All right, so
And
this
and retro video games is also a very big thing for me as well. Retro video games, pro wrestling, anime model building. I draw. I do perler bead art. I got a vast interest.
And
So,
I know Final Fantasy is one of your favorite.
yeah.
Yes, I collect anything and everything Final Fantasy. Part 6 is the best. I don't care what anyone says about 7. All right.
Sean is actually the geek heart of this. So I want to talk a little bit about what we want to do with this podcast. My biggest thing, I run a blog. It's called the Council of Caleb blog. Feel free to go check it out. It's just me dribbling about things that I like. We live in an age that fan toxicity is, I don't know if it's at its peak, but it's rampant. If you go on the internet, for every compliment somebody gives, there's 1,000 nameless people hiding in the anonymity of the internet, just being douchebags. And I hate that. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
It makes it hard nowadays to have a geek discussion on friendly terms.
You can't.
Yeah, because you're entitled to your opinion. I don't have to agree with you.
All right.
But as long as you hear each other out, and that's kind of what I think this table will encourage.
Yeah.
This podcast, we want to encourage with our listeners. If you ever want to comment in,
Oh yeah, for sure. We're gonna get a Facebook page up and running. We invite you all to come hang out with us, give us feedback, tell us what we're doing, talk to us. I mean, we're geeks just like you guys. But so that's what we kind of all collectively want to do with this podcast, is just give a little bit of positivity back into the universe of nerd culture.
Yeah, you're very much more likely to hear us talk about 5 things we loved in geekdom this week
absolutely.
than 5 things we hated in
Yeah.
geekdom this. That's not to say if something comes up that needs to be talked about that we won't talk about it, because we absolutely will. Especially in today's culture, the things that are going on. There's things that you cannot just ignore, but we want to try and focus on positives and things that we like about the different geekdoms that we're all following.
Yeah, absolutely. I love to gush about the things I love, but occasionally a Michael Bay Transform movie will come out, and then you'll hear me get into a very angry rant.
Or a Jurassic World where I just go off on a
Absolutely.
tirade. But so that's not to say that we're not going to have things that we talk about on the show that we don't care for. One thing that we're going to be doing is, as we get into our weekly program and this becomes more formulated, we're going to be picking. I'm going to bring a comic to the table that the other guys are going to read. That's kind of the sign up for being on the show. Like, I get to pick something, they get to read it. They pick something, I get to read it. It's a trade off. And so they might not like the comic that I pick, which is perfectly okay. But we're going to have that honest discussion and critique it without just devolving into trollish dribble. where we need to trash the race, the sexuality, the gender of the writer or the artist, or just any of these things. It's just, it's not going to be a 4chan comment section, basically. We'll have honest criticism.
I mean, honestly, the comment section on anything anymore.
Yes, but Caleb dropped a 4chan reference on episode 1. That's pretty impressive.
I'm going for it, man. I'm bringing the hate. Bring your fight to me. I want it. So that's what I want to do with the show. That's full disclosure. I'm a very happily married gay man. I love the diversity in the comics and not that weird YouTube channel. I like seeing people who are like me, seeing people who are different from me. I like seeing a plethora of the human beings that inhabit this planet in my comic books. And I think that makes for a wonderful, unique story when you get those things, when you get everyday people living everyday lives. And in comics, even when that's distorted and blown larger than life, I think that's wonderful. I think it adds to the substance of what life is.
Can't agree more. I just happen, if it's a good story, I'm going to read it. I don't care who wrote it. I don't care who worked on it. I'm going to read it. If it's a television show and it catches my interest, I'm going to watch it. Now, when I say I don't care, there's certain things that will turn me off. There's certain times you cannot separate the artist from the art.
Right.
And those are certain things that there's limits. But my point being is, I don't care what the story is about. I don't care that Thor is a woman or Thor is a man. If it's a good story, I'm going to read it.
Right.
Those sorts of things don't influence whether I'm going to like the story or not.
He says that, but he's not reading the great story where Thor's a woman.
Yeah, it's not good, but that's a different story. No, having said that, it's actually gotten a lot better, and I am reading it again. Yes, that when they did the going back to the old numbering.
Yeah, for sure.
I went ahead and jumped back on it. It just didn't. It wasn't for me. That doesn't mean it's not good.
Right.
It just wasn't a story that captured my interest, and that's okay. That happens.
Yep.
And you'll probably hear me say that more often than you'll hear me say a story's bad, because I realize that just because I don't like it doesn't mean Sean or Caleb won't like it, or you won't like it out there. It just means that it's not written for me. Right. It didn't capture my interest, and I'm okay with that. There's a lot of comic books that are released every week. Yes, I buy a lot of them, but not all of them are made for me.
Right.
And that's okay, because I can't afford to buy all of them.
I wish we could. We need to work on that.
Yeah.
Sean?
Kind of lost train of thought here. Hold on. Okay. Rolling back into it. Well, I
caught Sean sleeping.
You did a little bit. Been up a little early. Well, it's just, I feel, like I say, there's a comic book out there for everyone. There's some form of entertainment for everyone. If someone else doesn't like it, you don't have to get mad at that.
That's right.
Just because, and if you don't like something, doesn't mean it's the biggest piece of garbage out there.
Right.
It's just simply not for you. As Craig put it, it's a very good way of thinking. I think it's a very healthy way of thinking. It opens up good dialogue for discussion. And if you're open to suggestions, which eventually I think we were going to kind of get into some of our, the books we like currently and what we liked in the past.
Right.
I'm gonna go ahead and give a little preview for what's going to be on mine. Batman Rebirth. Oh my God! Honestly, I've been a Batman story arc reader. I read Hush, was amazing, but I never read anything around it. Battle for the Cowl I think that was pre-52. Good story.
So
never read anything around it.
You like reading the collected editions?
Well, I got them. Hush, I think I bought as trade. Battle for the Cowl, I got as coming out because I liked the concept about the story that was back in who's going to take over after Bruce. But now a friend of mine lent me the trades. Well, actually, preface at that, I bought The War of Jokes and Riddles, Volume 4 of this current run. A buddy of mine lent me the other trades. Now I have to read all of it because the story has been amazing.
Well, The War of Jokes and Riddles is maybe my all-time favorite Bat story ever. And that's saying really a lot as a lifelong Batman fan. Right. That is maybe one of the best ones. I've heard some complaints out there about it, which were really weird. One of the complaints I heard was that it's Batman telling a story instead of it being a story
about Batman.
who cares?
Yeah, it's still amazing.
Is that
I mean,
almost
that's your complaint?
is that almost like I kind of look at that as the exact same statement though.
Right.
Is Batman narrating his life? It's the same way as a narrator talking about Batman. To me, that's the same statement.
There are so many amazing moments in that story arc that who cares if he's it maybe it's meant to be slanted from Batman's point of view.
Right.
Maybe that's the whole point of that story.
I mean, here's my take on that. I'm full-blown gay dude, and even I'm saying if you have a problem listening to Bruce Wayne tell a story laying up in bed with Selina's sexy self, then you need to step back from it and readjust your life, because you've got some things you need to work on. Because it's so good.
So many good points.
4 words: Kite Man. Hell yeah.
Right.
That's all. Read it, find out. But
Absolutely.
other books like Caleb, where are some of the books you're really digging right now?
So one of the books I'm digging the most right now that unfortunately is not going to be continued was the new Iceman story. Cena Grace was doing it. I'm slowly but surely looking up the artist who is on it right now.
Yeah, I don't remember who the artist was. I remember when Cena Grace, believe it or not, was position he had at Image.
He was an editor.
He did the letters comment section at the back of Walking Dead for Kirkman's book.
Oh.
And I remember him
another very good
announcing
book.
that he was going to get some going out on his own and going to go do some things. So
Okay. Well, why don't you, Craig, while he's looking up
Alessandro
something.
Vitti.
He got it.
I did. I was quick with the Googles.
Good job.
Alessandro Vitti started off on that doing the pencils. Now, it may have shifted in the middle of it. I think Robert Gill jumped on there and did a little bit of it too. But really great story with a lot of heart. Really did something with the cool... I personally think it caused some controversy, but I personally thought it was a cool take on the new Iceman where he was outed. I believe it was...
it was
DC's
organic.
It felt organic to me, but I think who did that? That was
Bendis.
yeah, that was DC's powerhouse now, Bendis that did that. That's one of them that I'm really digging at the moment. I'm sad to see it go.
For me, believe it or not, for those of you that know me, because I do not like Superman, but I think Superman has been written extremely boring for a long time.
That's fair.
Action Comics right now is
Right.
absolutely one of my favorite books.
It's good.
Every I guess it's every 2 weeks now. It is absolutely one of my favorite comic books, and it's the one of them that I look the most forward to. They've made, which this is the only way you can write super. He's so powerful and has no weakness. I mean, you can say kryptonite, but he can't die. I mean, they've already proven that. So I mean, you can take him out of commission, but he's got no weakness. So you've got this alien with all of this power, and the only way that you can write him compelling is to make him human.
Yeah.
And they've done that by going back to post-crisis Superman. He's married, he's got a kid, his son is just now starting to learn about his powers and is developing his powers. So you have him trying to be the John Kent to his son's Clark Kent.
Right on.
But his son doesn't have the powers that he has. They're developing at different levels because he's half human. Okay. So some he's more powerful, some he's not as powerful.
And I want to say Dan Jurgens, the one who's he's doing the art and the writing on that.
No, there's a different artist on it.
Okay.
Yeah. Dan is definitely writing it though. I'll have to look and see who the artist is, but it's been phenomenal. The story story arc currently going on, where he's trying to find out who Mr. Oz is just absolutely amazing, and he's currently going through time and destroying time.
Very awesome.
Well, the book I'm currently looking forward to every month, and I'm gonna get some.
I know
I'm
what
getting
you're
some
gonna
looks.
say.
Oh yes, you do. Is Savage Dragon.
Yes, sir. He did say he was a '90s kid.
Yeah. Now hear me out. Savage Dragon, you may or may not have heard, has taken a turn in these recent issues. It's always been a mature book, but what I can respect about this creator is he has held on, for better or worse. I don't think Eric Larson has ever thrown out a design for a character, no matter how wacky. There's literally a man called Powerhouse who is a giant chicken. but he's like the strongest being in the entire comic book.
I think I saw him in a Family Guy episode.
He did battle Peter Griffin, I'm sure. But right now, it's always been a kind of a mature book, but never crossed that line. Apparently, recently, Eric Larson decided to cross that line. I'm not going to get into details. I don't really know how family friendly we're going to keep this show right now.
Oh, we're going to drop some F-bombs just as time goes on. So just, earmuffs if you don't like it. If not, come find us.
But as of late, he has gone full blown. I mean, he's acknowledging what his book is. It's action, sex, violence, hilarity, even a little political right now.
A little
Political when your hero is an alien and being kicked out of the United States by in-comic President Trump, wanting to get rid of all aliens, even outer world aliens. So he's in Canada right now, and he just beat up a whole bunch of Nazis, and it was great.
Eric Larson's give a fuck broke hard after the election. If you follow him on social media, it's snapped in half,
and just
in the most beautiful of ways.
It was borderline before the election.
Indeed.
So.
Like, and it's just now these few months, he is just giving less fucks, and I appreciate that. I am very happy when I see that in my pull box stack.
Yeah. So I guess we're going to keep going around the table here. The idea behind what we're doing right now, guys, is we're just going to each give you a couple of comics that are on our pull list that we're enjoying. We're not going to go in depth into a lot of them. Just give you a snapshot of what we're reading. So the one I want to talk about right now is a book called Rock Candy Mountain. It's by a guy named Kyle Starks. Phenomenal book. It takes place a little after World War II. It's about hobo culture. It's about guys who gave everything up to ride the rails and live on the outskirts of life. Essentially live in homelessness, but they have a code that they live by, and there's a little bit of mafia style. Anyway, it's a Faustian tale on that. This guy's basically sold his soul to the devil for some stuff, for some special abilities that he has. And he's met up with this other guy who's kind of in a bad place in life and seeking to get out, and they team up and they go on this really big, railroad adventure. It's gorgeous cartooning. It's not anything heavily detailed. It's kind of what you might expect if you opened up the Sunday paper and you see these different cartoons, these different comic strips. It's a more detailed take on that, but it's definitely in that vein.
Okay, well, moving on to my second book that I'm going to highly recommend right now is Baby Teeth. It's from the new publisher Aftershock, which if you are not reading their books, you are missing out.
Oh, there's some great stuff on there.
And I get no check for saying that. So when I say
not sponsored by Aftershock.
Yeah, but if you would like to.
They're putting out some fantastic books, and for me right now, at the top of that list every month is Baby Teeth, and it's written by Donnie Cates with Gary Brown doing the penciling, and probably the inks as well. I'm not sure what the kid is yet. Is he the Antichrist? Is he a vampire? We don't know yet, but it is just fantastic. It's a young woman, maybe just out of high school, gives birth to a baby, and the first time during birth, he's not a normal child anyways, because there's earthquakes all over the planet and all of this while he's being born. And first time he breastfeeds, he bites into her breast and starts drinking blood, and it just goes crazy from there on out.
I don't think that's normal.
It's not. That is not a normal action. No.
That's the first sign.
That's the first sign that your child is not human.
Right.
That's how I know I should never procreate, because if my kid ever did anything like remotely, like just bit the nipple, I'd just throw him out a window or something. I should never have children. I'm a great uncle, but that's about all I can do.
And the whole story is being told from the mother to the child. So at some point they get separated, and she's trying to get him the story now. So why she's not around. So it's been fantastic, and it's definitely one of my getting off of the big two and onto something else. That's one that I highly recommend.
Actually, it's getting off of the big three. Yeah.
Yeah. Now that you get with Image involved.
Well, right back to the third of the big three. I would say one of the books I look most forward to would be Saga. It's Brian K. Vaughan, Fiona Staples. an amazing writing, drawing team. It's the most fucked up Romeo and Juliet story in space you'll ever read. Without getting into too much detail, because to give the detail, it would just ruin the surprise. You should read it. The first trade is like only $10. It's a great starting point.
Yeah, that's something that Image does with all of their first trades. And again, we're not sponsored by any of these people. We're just fans.
But we are willing.
Yeah, I really like my pocketbook, so I
we
look
will
at these
sell out
things.
quick.
Oh, hard. I really like my pocketbook, so when I look for these deals, one thing that's really awesome that Image does with its first issues of its trades, they all start off at $10. So they get you in the door. You don't spend a ton of money. If you end up not liking it, it's $10. Like that's not a nothing amount of money, but it's also not anything that you can't recoup for some cost. You can always sell it back to your comic shop for half price.
Going back to Saga, if you're listening to a comic podcast and you're not reading Saga, or have not at least read the first trade and decided you didn't like it, I have to ask you, what are you doing with your life?
Yeah, I mean, it's that good. Well, and most things written by Brian K. Vaughan are. I could sing Staples' praises all day. I love her art; it's phenomenal. But I've been a fan of Brian K. Vaughan for I don't know how long.
Amazing writer.
Just incredible. I own.
Why the Last Man is just
The Runaways.
The Runaways.
Oh,
Watch it on Hulu. Not sponsored by Hulu.
again.
Send us a check.
We will sell out so quick.
You got anything else you want to throw in there? We kind of hijacked it because we all got really excited about Saga.
Well, I mean, I said Saga, so it's only a natural reaction
Right.
to it. And my most recent thing now, just because, as I mentioned, I think it kind of started this topic. Batman. I read the 4 trades. I went and bought every back issue leading to after the end of the War of Jokes and Riddles, and now I've caught up, and I cannot wait for the next book.
Since you brought up Batman again, and I meant to touch on this earlier, can we just talk for a second about how fantastic White Knight is?
Yes.
That book needs to be canon. I don't think it is.
It's not. No.
But
See,
it needs to be canon because the Harley Quinn
And I didn't want to. Sorry, then I just want to make sure you weren't going to get too excited. I don't want to spoil that.
I'm not going to spoil any of it.
And that's why I was kind of hesitant to talk about White Knight, but because I didn't want to risk me spoiling that.
If you are a Harley Quinn fan, a Joker fan, or just a straight up Batman fan, and you need to be reading this.
It's only
book.
4 of 8 issues, I believe it's going to be.
I think that's correct.
Check it out. Get it. It should still be on the newsstands. If not, buy that trade as soon as it comes out. It's an amazing story already.
Yeah, Sean Murphy's an incredible creator. He's another one of those. He writes and draws his own stuff. He did a book I really like called Punk Rock Jesus.
I read part of that, and it just wasn't my thing, but it was good. It just wasn't my thing.
Solidly. Well, I'm going to stay in the Batman family since we're going to talk about books we like. If you're not reading Detective Comics right now, stop what you're doing, go find your local comic shop, and go pick up at least 4 floppies because it's amazing. James Tynion the Fourth is a guy that's writing it. He is a great Batman writer. He's a great writer, period. He's done some other stuff that's really cool. I mostly know him from the DC wheelhouse. He was a student under Scott Snyder. Basically what he did is he took Detective Comics and he made it a team book. It's less about Batman and more about the peripheral characters around Batman and the people who have come up under the cowl. So you've got Batwoman, you've got several Robins, you've got Red Hood, Spoiler, Orphan, Clayface has been an incredible pleasure to read.
Nice. I don't feel like Clayface gets a lot of attention.
He doesn't, and when he does, historically he's a villain.
Right.
But what they've done with this one, they're trying to play with this idea of a man of 2 minds, and see if they can't fix him in some ways.
Interesting.
And the psychology of it all. Anyway, it's
just read
really
this week's.
really good. It's a solid book, solid team member. I'm a huge Batwoman fan, so anything that Kate's in, I'm going to pick up. I'm really glad I did because this is the heart of the Bat family.
One more for me. Creator-owned Royal City. Jeff Lemire's writing and doing the art on it. No one out there writes the human condition better than Jeff Lemire when he's doing his own work. His work generally is fantastic anyways, But when he's doing his own stories and is just touching on, I mean, he has a book about growing up in Canada.
Right.
The name is eluding me right at the moment, but fantastic. The guy writes the human condition better than anybody in comics, with the exception of maybe Brian K. Vaughan.
Right.
The two of them, Lemire may very well be the next Brian K. Vaughan coming up, in my opinion. You know, I mean, just give him enough time to have that same clout, and he may very well be, just from that standpoint, being able to take human emotions and put them in different conditions and see how people respond to it.
Yeah, I think those two are definitely in the same wheelhouse, at least.
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking about independent creators. Lemire does really great stuff with licensed characters too, though.
He does.
Yeah.
His Green Arrow run in New 52.
I was going to say his Moon Knight run and back at Marvel, man. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he took Green Arrow during New 52 when just about everybody I know had left the book. No one was reading that book anymore, and he got on it with Sorrento.
Was it?
Anyways, he got on there on that book. The two of those teamed up, and man, he crushed that story.
Yeah.
He crushed it, and people came back to the book, and Green Arrow was a good book again.
I feel like that should be a comic in itself, just titled Green Arrow was a good book again.
It's kind of like when Aquaman's a good book.
Right.
It surprises you.
In a happy way.
Right.
In the happiest of ways. We like it when books are good.
I got one more recommendation, creator owned, and definitely not part of the big 3 or 4. It's a manga. It's called My Hero Academia. If you are an anime or manga fan, you've probably heard of it. If you're not, and had a hard time getting into anime and manga, this is the one that'll get you in there. It's about a world of people born with superpowers. Everyone has one, except the main character. And he has become a fan of the superheroes, because everyone has a power, whether it's a big power or even a simple power. And it's just his struggle to want to be a superhero when he's born. They call them quirks in this manga. And he's born quirkless. Then he gets to meet his idol, and it takes off from there. It's an amazing story. The manga is just phenomenal. The anime is 2 seasons in. You can also check that one out. And because, like I said, as I was saying, there's some people that have a hard time getting into anime, and I feel like this is a good bridge. If you're into superhero comics, this is a good one to step into the world of anime and manga. So I'd like to recommend that one.
This is one that I've actually read some of. I think I don't even know. I read quite a bit of it, but picture a comic book world where everybody's an X-Men.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you are born human.
Pretty much, yes.
I mean, if you're talking about talent, that's pretty much how I feel all the time anyway. It's basically like living in a world with Will Smith.
It makes it relatable.
Right?
To the normal person.
Yeah. It's very good. Highly recommend that.
It is a great series.
All right, I'm going to wrap up our quick little pull list picks with my last one. It's the Avengers run. Uncanny Avengers actually just ended, and it folded over into a new book that's going weekly. The Avengers line just started something called No Surrender. It's Mark Waid, Al Ewing, and Jim Zub all putting out weekly titles featuring most of the Avengers crew. I'm a lifelong Avengers fan. They're what pulled me into comics. George Perez, Kurt Busiek, that run that's my golden era of comics for anything. Love it. Love those characters, and they're doing a lot with those characters that Kurt Busiek and George Perez really did put in my heart, basically. Wonder Man, guys like Scarlet girls like the Scarlet Witch, some of the most phenomenal characters in all of the wheelhouse of the Avengers are in this book with some great writers. If I have to tell you about why Mark Waid is a great writer, then we need to have a conversation about a lot of things. Al Ewing has been doing phenomenal work. If you're not familiar with some of his stuff, U.S. Avengers has been really good. And then Jim Zub, like I said, he's on Uncanny Avengers. These are some great stories. If you get on the internet right now and you log on to anything, you might hear about how everything Marvel does sucks. Simply not true. There's nothing that founded that. There are some amazing books, one of them being the Uncanny Avengers books that's been coming out. Jim Zub is a solid writer. He knows what he's doing. He knows the mythos of so many of these characters, and he puts a lot of heart into it. And if you want to get back to people who put positivity out into the universe, you follow Jim Zub on social media, which you should. He's a great follow. When he gets these trollish comments, he'll actually answer them. He'll take them and he'll put out this very well-educated informational response to what are obviously trolls trying to rile him up. And he'll make some amazing points, some very valid points. For somebody who is outside of the comic industry, like I am, it really does re-solidify your focus and teach you some things about who these people are that are creating the things that we love. So yeah, check out the Avengers No Surrender.
So didn't they're ending all of the Avengers books, and this is the only current Avengers book out, because US Avengers ended as well, I believe.
Did it? Oh, yeah.
And I think they've folded all of them into this storyline. And my understanding is it 16 weeks, I think.
I believe so, 16 or 18, something like that.
So when this story is over, however many weeks it is, so 3, 4, 5 months down the road, again, it's Marvel. Take it for what you want, because they say this every time they do an event.
True.
It's game changing. I think we're going to have new Avengers teams and new things after this, and a new direction for the Avengers title or titles is hopefully.
Well, honestly, I hope so.
Hopefully, we get a young Avengers again.
I would love that, man. And I do hope it breathes some new life into the Avengers titles, because, fair enough, that is a critique of it. It needed it. It hasn't been as good, I think, as any of us.
But they're
have
following
wanted
a Hickman.
Right.
I mean, honestly, there's only so much you can do when you don't want, what's the old saying? You don't want to be the guy following the guy. You want to be the guy following the guy following the guy.
Right.
And unfortunately, really great writers on these stories, but Hickman's run on Avengers is a classic at this point. In my opinion.
Is.
It's hard to follow unless you read it in trade form, or sit down and read it all at once, because that's Hickman. But
I mean,
I'm
Hickman's
really
been on
looking
anything,
forward to where it goes.
Yeah, Hickman's a powerhouse, man.
Well, he is, but his stories are very convoluted, and if you don't follow them, you almost have to, when you get if you're reading it monthly, when you get this much, you almost have to go back and read last month's and reread this month's, just to make sure you don't miss it.
I have to trade weight on Hickman, just because he is such a I want to live inside his brain, like for 24 hours, just to see what's happening in there.
Him and Joe Hill.
Oh man, he is so detail oriented. Like, he might have a shoe untied in issue 17 of something, and in issue 34, it's a major plot point.
Yeah.
Which is really cool when you think about the mapping out of books. But when you're reading something sequentially, and it's been a month since you've looked at it, and you might have forgotten that thing, and then 6 months later you realize that, oh, there's something that you're not connecting here, and you have to go back and find out what it was. That almost feels like homework sometimes. Not that it, I like comic book homework. It's a lot better than real life homework sometimes. True. But it does make it hard to follow. That's why I like reading it in trade form. He's writing East of West. That's one of my favorite series right now, and I don't read it monthly.
Yeah, I read it monthly. Well, I read it when it comes out.
Right.
Which isn't monthly. But I do read it in floppy form, and it usually takes me 3 or 4 pages to go. I know what you're thinking. Just stop. Giggity. I read it in floppy form, and it usually
You're
takes
just going to keep saying
3
floppy form. I'm just going to keep laughing at you.
And it takes 3 or 4 pages before I remember what the last story was, or the last book was. But that's okay, because it comes. I really wish that they did the. Every book would have like a recap of the story, but then I guess the theory would be is people wouldn't go back and find the old ones and read.
Right.
So that's probably. I believe Marvel still does that in every book, or a good portion of their books, but I know Image doesn't, and DC definitely doesn't. So
great comic, guys. You both talked about comics that I'm not reading, so I'm gonna have to go check into those and maybe put them on my pull list, which is kind of the whole point of this.
Indeed.
We want to open people's minds up to stuff they're not reading, and there's some great books coming out, and like I said, none of us have the time or the means to read them all, but we try to put a big dent in them. And we're fortunate enough. All of us are friends with a local comic shop owner who allows us to go sit and hang out on Wednesdays. I say friends. He's kind of an asshole, but we love him.
Shout out.
I hope you're listening, Matt. Come at me, bro. But no, we love the dude. He lets us come into his shop, hang out on Wednesdays. Even lets us read comics if we're going to talk about them, even if he knows that we're not going to pick them up. So, it's a great thing to have that kind of relationship.
It is. It's a that store has a great vibe for just going and hanging out and picking up your books. I mean, I personally have expanded my friend circle a ton just because of that store. So if nothing else can be said, that can be said.
Absolutely. And which, by the way, this will be a cheap plug for that asshole, Matt. Kapow Comics in Sherwood, Arkansas. Come check them out. Probably the friendliest comic book store I've ever been in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they've got a good Facebook page too. Go like it. If you're in Arkansas, it's worth the drive. Kick-ass dollar bin section, man. Like 20-something boxes, newer stuff.
Again, we're not being paid for this.
But really, really good stuff. So check it out. So yeah, man, good comic talk. So it's the first month of the year. We're trying to all kind of get our plans for next year together. What are you thinking about doing in 2018? What are you looking for the show to do in 2018?
For the show?
All right, for the show or for yourselves?
I mean, personally, as far as geekdom goes right now, I'm really looking forward to getting caught up on my reading.
Yeah.
I fell behind this year because I collect a lot of books and I spent a lot of time organizing comics this year. And my goal for 2018 is to read more than I collect.
Right.
Yes, I'm always looking for good deals on comics and back issues and current collection is at over 31,000 comic books, individual comic books.
It's mighty.
So yes, I'm always looking for good deals to keep adding to my collection, but I don't want to do it at the detriment of reading. So that's a personal goal for me to spend more time reading this year than I did last year. And for the show, is just to kind of spread our fun. I know the three of us love this culture, and to spread that to people out there that maybe, are those people that you see on Facebook that are going, and I hate Marvel, they're this, blah, blah, blah. I hate DC, quit hating.
I hate.
And I hate. That's all you ever hear anymore.
Just a hate robot.
Read. If you pick up a book and it's not for you, fine, put it down and pick up another one, because I guarantee you there's at least 5. If you have at some point in your life loved comic books enough to be able to get on a comic book webpage or a comic book Facebook page enough to say how much you hate them now, I guarantee you that somewhere within you is still a love for a book. You just got to keep picking up titles until you find the one you want. Absolutely. And I guarantee you can find 5 titles a month to read that absolutely. You love. I guarantee you can. And hopefully my goal is for us to present a positive spin on comic books and on geekdom in general, because we're going to talk about other things besides comic books. That's why the name of the podcast isn't Southern Fried Comic Books. It's Southern Fried Geekery. We're going to talk about all kinds of things. We may have a Star Wars show at some point in the future where Caleb and Sean both bring all of the hate of, they don't personally hate The Last Jedi, but they may bring all of the hate that they're reading on the internet and have me address it.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
We may do things like that. We may not. My point is we're going to look at things from the positive standpoint, because, again, you cannot like something and not take that enjoyment away from somebody else just because you don't like it.
Yeah, man, life's too short. Don't waste energy focusing on hate in any aspect in your life. I mean, yeah, I don't understand people's need to just be in a bad mood all the time. There's just no point.
For those of you that don't know, my wife and I have 4 cats. They're very likely to be on this podcast at some point.
And we love them all.
You will hear them often.
What about you Sean?
Well, can I honestly say one of the first goals has been achieved by us recording this very episode? How long have we been talking about it? Yes.
Years.
We've been talking about a podcast forever, And now we've at least sat down and recorded. Good or bad, this first episode is being made, and that's great.
Right on.
Other personal goals is I am continuing to try and get a complete run of Savage Dragon, all the individual floppies. Which, yes, floppies, yet again, Caleb.
I like it.
A lot harder than I thought it was going to be.
You said floppy and hard right back to back.
You are absolutely right, sir.
There's going to be the occasional dick joke, guys. I mean, it's
more than occasional. But of course, going to continue trying to get those. Trying to find some new conventions. As I mentioned earlier, I do perler bead art, and I usually am selling my artwork at cons. And kind of maybe want to expand, maybe do another couple cons. I usually hit up the usual same two. Got a not just another Comic-Con coming up here in February.
yeah.
Then I always do the end of the year. I always do Comic-Conway in November. Usually it's set in November or December. But I'm thinking about expanding out a little more into that. Beyond that,
You should, man, because I want to take a second here to, Sean is a friend, but he's also a very talented individual. He does stuff that's not just comics related. He took a picture of a dog that my husband and I lost a few years ago, and made it and gave it to us at our wedding. It's amazing. It's photo quality. I don't know how he does it, and he has his own little magic secrets, I'm sure, but he can take a picture of anything. If you can put a digital photo up on the internet, he can take it, turn it in this really, really cool bead art. It doesn't matter if it's a real life picture, a cover of a comic that you love, your favorite character, just anything, man. It's good stuff.
He just set the bar pretty high for you, brother.
I cannot live up to that. Thank you. If any of that made you interested in checking out my work, I do have a Facebook page called Retro Beads. Should have most of my work still up on there, and you can check out some of my photorealism to just simple sprites and work. I've been doing it for about 4 or 5 years now. Savage Dragon is a profile picture. That's how you know it's that one.
So, to touch on something he said, I want to give a plug to our friend Larry. He's putting together this Not Just Another Comic-Con, and it's the second year of the show.
Yeah.
And it's
Here
getting
in
ready
Little
to come up. We'll promote the local ones here in Little Rock as they come up, because that's where our focus is right here. But last year I went to the Dallas Fan Expo, so as we go to other Comic Cons, we'll promote them as well. Just to kind of let you know what we're up to as fans.
Yeah.
But Not Just Another Comic Con is being funded, everything by a friend of ours, Larry Lilly, here in Little Rock. It's happening out at the Holiday Inn by the airport.
Yeah.
And this year the focus is going to be horror.
Yes. Camp, not just another Comic-Con.
That's right. Going to have some amazing horror guests there.
Yes, and there's going to be some voiceover actors, if I'm not mistaken. We'll actually have a list for the next episode when we plug this again.
Some friends of ours that are artists are going to be there.
Yep.
So we're looking forward to that, and hopefully if you're local or if you're in this area here in February, you can make it to that show. But we'll get that information for our next show for everybody. Yeah, just kind of a plug for that.
For sure, man.
I'll be sitting up there at my table selling my artwork and doing yet another hobby I forgot to actually mention in my long list. I will be in cosplay. I also do cosplay.
Sean does the cosplay.
Yes.
So my goals for the show in 2018, we have a lot of them. We have an extended list of things we want to try to do. But basically, I want to be able to put out a timely, fun comic
Comic
going
show.
through the year. Yes.
We're not putting
Comic
out an
podcast.
actual
I'm not actually
comic,
making
people.
comics.
We're making a comic about the podcast.
That would be
Yes.
amazing.
That could
If
actually
we have
happen.
any of our creator friends out there that think that this is entertaining enough to make a comic about,
All fan art is welcome and appreciated.
Right on. I want to be able to put out this podcast in a timely manner, have a great time doing it, get to hang out with my friends. I want to be able to bring in some more of our people as we kind of expand. We want to have a cast coming in and out, just so we get that really diverse group of opinions. Full disclosure, right now you're sitting around a table with a bunch of white dudes. You happen to have a gay white dude at the table, but that is essentially what it is. We don't want it to be that homogenous. We've got some friends who are going to bring some other perspectives. We've got some African American friends who are going to come in and talk about the comics and stuff that they're reading. We've got some ladies who are going to come sit down and talk to us, and I want to really bring that in because it's not all just it's not about us. Comics are for everybody, and everybody are for comics. So we can really take that and expand on it. We can give you those perspectives. I want to be able to go to some cons. I'm always interested in expanding my back issue collection, but I'm also really getting into collecting art. I'm nowhere near where I want to be, and I don't really have the funds right now to be where I want to be because I'm a broke college kid again. But we're working on that, and I fortunately have an amazing partner in life who keeps me going and lets me do these things that I kind of love. But I really want to get some more art from these artists that I love. If I can ever meet George Perez, I might just stop at that and just die.
Is he actually doing the con scene again?
He's scheduled on some.
Okay, good for him.
To go back on Caleb's statement about his husband who supports him, big shout out to everyone, significant other, who lets them be the geeks and nerds that they are.
Yeah, right on, man. We're grown folks, but
all three of us are very lucky with our spouses.
If you have a spouse who, even if they're not into your nerd culture stuff, but they just kind of smile and laugh and just let you be yourself, go hug that person, man, because it's not easy. We know how it is.
Absolutely.
My wife went and got Doctor Who sheets and Marvel sheets for my bed, so I mean that tells you that, you know. And anybody, my bathroom is what?
Star Wars, man.
Star Wars.
You know, so absolutely.
Well, my last goal for the show is to get to a point to where we can do some interviews with some creator friends that we have. We've all been in, I call it the game. We've been in the game long enough that we have been able to meet and establish relationships with people who are in the comics industry, who are in the nerd industry, not just comics industry, who are in the publication industry, they're in the film industry. And we've built friendships over the years that are hopefully going to lead to us being able to do some interviews with folks that we just would normally sit down and talk to anyway. We want to be able to bring that to you guys who are, you know, you're giving us your time, and time is money. So we want to make this quality stuff for you guys.
So Brian, you hear us talking to you. Be prepared.
We're coming for you, buddy. And several other of our friends.
Absolutely. And there's lots of them out there.
So yeah, that's kind of my goals for 2018. Also, not to die of this head cold would be great.
That is a solid goal.
Yeah, that's something to focus on now.
Yeah, because I don't know how to do the editing, so if you die, this podcast is dead.
Well, I don't know how to do the editing either, so I'm just going to kind of...
This has already turned to a nice train wreck right now, ladies and gentlemen.
This thing's held together by duct tape and bubble gum, man.
And hope.
Don't forget hope. Lots of hope. New hope.
New hope.
Yeah, just because it's a new show. So by the time you're hearing this, we'll have gotten hopefully our Facebook page up. Go on there and give us a like. If you're listening to this on whatever type of podcast aggregate you're listening to it on, if they have a review section, please go review us, good or bad. I'd rather have honest reviews than none at all. But give us a like on there. Give us a review. iTunes, SoundCloud, Podbean, hopefully we'll have on there. Go on there, give us a review, give us a like. It helps us be able to reach more people. It also lets us know if we're doing something right. If you can leave a comment, if you have things that you want us to kind of do or change. I know you can't really get a good grasp on what we're doing just on this first issue, but, you know, throw us a bone. Say something, send some love, send some hate. Not too much of it, but...
Now he said bone.
I was on a roll and you just killed it.
You're welcome.
Amazing. Yeah, that's kind of us. This is what we are. This is what we're going to do. After we get through a few of these episodes, we're going to actually have a pretty solidified format.
No, we're not.
No.
I have hope.
We're going to try to, but the reality is we want to keep. We do want a format so people listening week in, week out kind of know, hey, they're going to talk about this, then they're going to move on to... But we're going to keep it as organic as we can as well. What kind of led to this is honestly our sitting around talking about comics at the comic book store.
At Kapow Comics, located in Sherwood, Arkansas.
Talking about geekdom at the comic book store. So that's kind of what led to this whole podcast was, you know, maybe other people might want to hear what we're talking about. Maybe not. Hopefully, yes. While I hope it's formatted, I hope we don't ever lose that organic conversation. Because even this episode, we had an outline. We stuck to it for the most part, but we did get organic in our conversation, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah, we, you know, you formulate all you want, but in the end, the conversation is going to drive the direction, and hopefully it's in an entertaining fashion. Hopefully it's a knowledgeable fashion for y'all that would find some kind of enjoyment from listening to three guys, currently, three guys, one dying, rambling on about stuff we love.
We'll replace him if he dies. No,
Just prop me up in the corner.
He'll become the mascot.
Yeah, man. Like, I can't repeat what they just said. They said it better than I could. But essentially, that's who we are and what we want to do. Basically, this is just us sitting around a table with our friends. And that's all it's ever going to be. You know, not selfishly, and I hope this doesn't turn anybody off, but if one person listens to this or 100 people listen to this, it doesn't really matter. We're just going to kind of keep doing it anyway because this is fun.
Oh, this is great.
This is really fun.
we've had a blast.
This makes all of our wasted conversations with no one listening in, at least somebody, somewhere.
I mean, and there's at least going to be one listener because I'm going to subscribe to this and listen to myself talk because I'm a narcissist. But
I'm going to unsubscribe immediately.
So, I mean, I think we've all, just from our little trial run earlier today as we were testing equipment and that sort of thing, all remembered how much we hate hearing the sound of our own voice. So before we head out,
Pump the brakes.
everybody give a book that you're looking forward to for next week.
Oh. Future
Me
recommendations.
personally, next week, and if you guys aren't prepared for that, that's fine. But I do have one that I want to put out there because it's a number one. It's been a great series. Number two, it's by a creator that Caleb and I are both friends with, and that Spread number 25 comes out next week. It's the
Right.
final issue in the series. Justin Jordan's writing it, and I believe Kyle Stram is the artist on it, with different guest artists throughout time. It's been a fantastic book. Pick it up in trade format. Read it. If you are reading it already, know that the series ends next week, so that's a book that I'm looking forward to.
right on. I've got one. It's actually a mini series that you should check out. It's actually something I wouldn't regularly read. I'm not on the Wonder Woman title, but there's a crossover right now. It's Wonder Woman and Conan. I'm a huge fan of Pulp. Huge fan of Conan. You know, what is best in life. I can quote you all of that stuff. Love this character. And am really getting into the Wonder Woman stuff just kind of because of my love for George Perez and because she's just inundated in our culture right now. It's made me want to go back and read that stuff. So Wonder Woman Conan number 5 comes out tomorrow. Really want to check it out. Really encourage you. I think it's a 6-issue series. Gail Simone, Aaron Lopresti, Matt Ryan, I think, is on colors. Solid series, man. It's messing with the mythos of all those things. Quirky and weird, and I love it.
And he is not lying about his love for Conan. I was at his wedding, and it was blessed by Crom. Just saying.
Yeah, straight up gay wedding blessed by Crom. You don't see that in Arkansas every day.
That's amazing.
Sean?
My recommendation is continuing, as I've been gushing about it this entire podcast, Batman issue number 39, entitled Super Friends, which is amazing.
Yes.
And it's going to be featuring Wonder Woman, actually, who I'm honestly have never been a huge fan of her, but I'm really interested in how Tom King's going to write her. I think it's going to be a really interesting book. I can't wait to see how he's going to write her in.
Great.
It's funny, both of us have mentioned how we're not really familiar or like Wonder Woman. That we might have to.
I personally like Wonder Woman.
I'm loving her now that I'm reading her. I think that was my thing, is I didn't have that much access to her. So we might have to do that on a future episode. Just dig into some old Wonder Woman stuff.
Possibly. I was definitely not a DC kid, so I'm still learning a lot about DC. I was a Marvel kid growing up. So.
All right, guys, and that's it. It's a wrap. Go forth, read comics.